Hey everyone, welcome to another vlog of Steven Universe. This time we've got episodes 10 through 12. This was a fun set. They've all been fun sets so far. This block started with Steven the Lion. Fun episode. Definitely kept me guessing. I thought it was going to be some kind of the lion is a wild animal. Steven misunderstood what it wanted, what it was doing, which it sort of did. But then it ended up that it wanted to help him anyway, and it became a pet, which really surprised me. I was really surprised that they would introduce a new recurring character who seems like, you know, a full-fledged team member. I mean, he's a lion with basically superpowers. But then, nope, he doesn't appear in the other two episodes. So, I don't really know what's going on there. I guess they kind of ended the episode with the suggestion that he was going to stick around, but then he didn't. Connie hasn't shown up again either, but, you know, there hasn't really, you know, the stories have been focused heavily on missions, so I'm not surprised by that. She could have shown up in the arcade episode, I guess, but why? That would have made it even more busier than it was. But yeah, that was a pretty straightforward episode. Steven made a friend with a lion, which was pink, which is cool. The thing I immediately thought of was the juxtaposition of a lion in the desert. Thing I always think of, especially with the desert of things like rising up and collapsing again, is The Never-Ending Story. Not the movie, which is a decent movie, but the book is spectacular and has massive amounts of stuff that is not in the movie. And one of the things that shows up in the book is the forest of night and the desert of day. And this is a book I first read when I was 7. And bits of it have stuck with me a very long time. This is one of the ones that really stuck with me, was this lion who is incredibly colorful and beautiful. I think he's rainbow-hued, if I remember right. It's been a long time. And he chases after this beautiful forest. But the problem is, wherever he goes, it becomes day. And in the daytime, the forest, which is the forest of night, becomes the desert of day. It just collapses into sand. And that's exactly what's happening here, with these towers collapsing into sand. It was a really visually impressive episode. I really liked the sequence at the climax, with the massive towers rising up, and the sandstorm going on, and just towers rising and collapsing, and Steven and the lion jumping around inside it. It was a really cool action sequence, with no real monster for once, just the environment itself. That was nice. That was a nice difference. Very video gamey. Reminded me of the sort of thing that happens in something like, I don't know. I've only seen Let's Plays of them, but something like your character action games, your Bayonetta or your Metal Gear Revengeance, that kind of thing. With just like the environment going haywire and having to do all these spectacular moves and stuff. Though this was, as I said, kind of devoid of enemy creatures. But video games, of course, brings up the next episode. Arcade something. I'm not good with titles. Where Steven takes them all to the arcade. So we have already a fantastical adventure into Fantasyland, because I haven't seen an arcade in years. But he takes them to an arcade. Well, there was this local chain that was like bars that had video games. Like, lots of video games. Like, it was basically an arcade that served alcohol. But, I think they've shut down now, so but like a regular old-fashioned arcade with a bunch of video games and tickets and that kind of thing. No, haven't seen that in a long time. But anyway, you know, this show is clearly being written by 90s kids, and that was, you know, the trip to Chuck E. Cheese's or whatever was a big 90s and 80s experience. So, excuse me, that's in here. And the characters react exactly predictably. I honestly didn't care that much for the episode because the characters were behaving so predictably. Pearl hated it because, well, she has a problem with the fact, which is just the fact of video games, is that the history of video game design works out such that the first and best solution to any problem in almost any video game is violence. And Pearl, while she is capable of being violent when the need arises, is not someone who seeks out unnecessary violence. So to her, instinctively, you avoid crashing the car, where in video game logic, you want to crash the car because you want to smash stuff. Because that's what you do in video games. It's not really a criticism of video games exactly. I'm not saying they shouldn't have that, but one thing that's really become clear in the last couple of years is that video games are a very limited medium. Not by nature, but just by having a limited pool of people and ideas that feed in on themselves. You have a small group of people who make games, and then people who learned what games should be from those games, and they make games. And that's really how basically any art form works. But the problem is, because that initial pool was so small, and because it's so recent, the result is that the idea of what games can be and what they can do is very narrow. And limited very much to, with a few exceptions, limited very much to smashing things. Now, Garnet, of course, raises one of the obvious objections, which is the rhythm game. I guess Meat is funny. I mean, it was kind of funny in a bizarre sort of way, but it was basically just random that it was shaking meat. There's the rather dirty pun in there that, you know, she's beating the meat. And then she and Steven beat the meat together. But it's almost certainly intentional, but I don't want to go there. I don't think it's implying anything. I think it's just a crude joke. Sometimes I think animators and cartoon writers do things just to see if it'll slip past the censors. Which on Cartoon Network it almost always does, because their censors seem to be asleep. I mean, watch regular shows sometime. I have no idea how that's not on Adult Swim. But anyway, arcade adventure, monsters arise, but Garnet refuses to not play the game. We got the interesting reveal of Garnet's third eye, which fits very well in with her character of being this kind of elite martial artist who meditates, and so of course she's opened her third eye. She's got access to powers of the mind. They even mention she's got enhanced perception, which is why she goes on missions on her own a lot, and why she's essentially the one who gives the others their orders. Which brings us now to the next episode, which focused mostly on the Amethyst-Pearl relationship, which is probably the most fun in the show. I just enjoy them sniping at each other. I enjoy that they can't get along at all, because I like both of them, and yet it's totally believable that they have a real problem getting along with each other, because they're so tremendously different, except in being stubborn, in which feature they are identical. That plays out well. I really need some backstory, because I feel like they're sisters. I feel like Garnet is much older than the other two. But I feel like all three of them feel like sisters. I'm really curious as to what their relationship actually is. But we did get something interesting, which is that they can fuse into Opal, who's awesome. I really liked Opal. I love that she has 4 arms. I love that you can see elements of both of them in her, like in terms of character design and behavior and so forth. I love the way she dances around the battlefield in a way that combines the two of them. I love that she combines the spear and the whip into a bow and arrow. I really like everything about that character. I love her voice, which is very reminiscent of Garnet. I don't think it's the same voice actress. It's possible, but I don't think it is. But it's still a really nice touch that, like, the two of them together become Garnet-like, because she does kind of exist in between them a lot of the time. But this time, no, it's Steven who does, and Steven who has to harmonize between them, hence the song, so that they can do their little fusion dance. Yes, Dragon Ball Z reference. Wouldn't be the first time there's been one in something Ian Jones-Quartey does. Yeah, it's just all around fun. She looks a lot like Shiva from the Final Fantasy series. That's probably intentional, too. I don't think it's meaningfully intentional. I think it's just a case of, oh, hey, that's a really great design that works. Yeah. So, Opal is awesome. And apparently Steven can do that too, which now I'm really curious about what his fusions with the other characters would look like. And I'm guessing, if all 3 of them can do it, Garnet probably can as well, because it's probably like a gem power that's universal to all of them. Creates the interesting challenge, though, if they have to be, like, for lack of a better term, they have to be able to coordinate, which in the episode was... I'm sorry, my brain just shut down. They have to coordinate, which in the episode was represented by them not dancing together very well. But in, like, the meta text, I guess you could call it, is about them not being able to coordinate emotionally and not being able to get along. And so Steven has to create that bridge, which is really kind of his function in the show, is kind of, he's the one who brings the others together. They are united in caring for him, if nothing else. Especially Pearl and Amethyst. I do wish I knew a little bit more about gemstones, so I'd know, like, if there's a significance to Opal being between Pearl and Amethyst, like being a combination of the two. I mean, they're all gemstones, obviously. Amethysts are kind of purplish, I think. And Pearl, I mean, I know what a pearl is. Opals, I have a vague notion of them. Kind of rainbow-colored, aren't they? I guess that makes sense. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if other fusions happen. We'll see if Garnet gets involved in one. I'm wondering if they can do some kind of mega everyone fusion. But we'll see. That's probably season finale stuff if it happens. Anyway, still enjoying the ride. And I look forward to next week and looking at the next block of episodes. Thanks.